Hello students, welcome to this chapter. In this chapter, we are going to study behavior. Behavior can be innate and learned behavior. What is behavior in general? Behavior is the coordinated response of an organism to an internal or external stimulus. For an organism to show a coordinated response, then any behavior must have three main components. These three main components are receptor, effector, and the linking system or coordinating system. To see the generalized model of the components of behavior, first there must be a stimulus or environmental factors. A stimulus means a change in the internal or external environment that initiate organisms to react or respond. Second, there must be receptors that are capable to detect stimulus or a change on environmental factors. These receptors are a group of cells that are specialized to receive and process stimuli. Then these receptors transfer the information to coordinating or linking system. Coordinating or linking system is the working together of various organs or parts of the body of an organism in a proper manner to produce an appropriate reaction or response to stimulus. In this case, the linking system or coordinating system is influenced by receptors and then in turn influence the effectors. So, the processed, integrated, and interpreted meaningful information passed to effectors. Effectors are any parts of an organism that produces a response to a stimulus. That means effectors are here responsible to give response back to stimulus or environmental changes. This is a model to specific behaviors in both animals and plants. How do plants respond to unidirectional stimuli? Plants give response to certain stimuli through growth movement, what we call tropism. Tropism is a growth movement of plants to stimuli either towards or away from stimuli. There are many different types of tropism, but in this lesson we are going to study the five main types of tropism: phototropism, geotropism, thigmotropism, hydrotropism, and chemotropism. Phototropism. Phototropism is the growth movement of plants in response to light stimulus. Phototropism can be positive phototropism and negative phototropism. Positive phototropism means growth movement of plants towards light, and negative phototropism means growth movement of plants away from light. There are plants that grow towards light, and there are also other plants that grow away from light or towards darkness. Everyone has noticed that if you put a plant on a windowsill where the light intensity of light will be greater on the window side than on the other side, the plant shoots grow towards the window. They grow towards the greater light intensity. These plant shoots are positively phototropic because they grow towards high intensity of light. The response is even more marked in young seedlings. The benefit in plant stems growing towards the greatest intensity of light is that stems automatically direct their leaves in this direction as well. This means that the chlorophyll and other pigments in the leaf cells can absorb the maximum amount of light for photosynthesis. This response is coordinated by plant growth substance called auxin. Hormonal systems are the coordinating or linking systems in plants. In this case, auxins are responsible and produced in the shoot tip in response to light and move downwards and away from light to the dark side of the shoot. The auxins stimulate the shoot cells to divide and enlarge, so growth is greatest on the side away from the light. As this side grows more, it causes the shoot to bend towards the light. Let us see the generalized model of plant's behavior or response in case of one stimulus, light intensity. There is light from one side of the plant. Receptor cells on the shoot tip detect the stimulus and initiate the production of auxins. Auxins, in this case, as linking or coordinating system, are produced and moved away from the exposed side and moved to shaded side of the plant. Then the hormonal system, in this case, auxin, initiate the effector cells that are cells on the dark side of the stem, which then grow fastest. Lastly, these effector cells produce responses. The response is growth of shoots toward the greatest intensity of light. The second type of tropism is gravitropism or geotropism. Geotropism is a coordinated process of differential growth by a plant in response to gravity pulling on it. In this case, plant roots show positive gravitropism and stems or shoots show negative gravitropism. This, that is, roots grow in the direction of gravitational pull, that is downward, and stems grow in the opposite direction, that is upward. Plant roots bend in response to gravity due to regulated movement of the plant hormone auxin. Auxins that mostly exist in the root meristems distribute to the lower side of the root in response to gravity stimulus, and this initiate differential growth that keep continue growth of roots in the same direction of gravity. The third type of tropism is thigmotropism. Thigmotropism is a directional growth movement which occurs as a mechanosensory response to touch stimulus. Thigmotropism is typically found in tuning plants and tendrils. This behavior occurs due to unilateral growth inhibition, that is, the growth rate of the side of the stem which is being touched is slower than on the side opposite to the touch. The resultant growth pattern is to attach and sometimes curl around the object which is touching the plant. That means when plants are in contact with touch stimulus or a physical object, they tend to respond to such stimulus by growing on those objects. The most common example is the behavior of tendrils of some plants like vine, ivy, and pea plants, which use their tendril for support and often coil around the object for climbing. As I said before, one side of the plant, the tendril, is exposed to touch. Those touch stimulus are transferred to the side of the plant that is not in contact with the object. This signals the parts in the touch to curl or twinning around the object. That means cells that are touched produce auxins and transport it to the untouched parts of the plant or cells. The untouched cells on the outside of a bend grow faster than the touched or contact cells or parts of the plant. That causes the vine or ivy or pea plants to curve towards the side of the contact. Chemotropism is the movement of plant in response to certain chemicals. A chemical gradient can influence the growth of plants in a positive or negative way. Positive growth is characterized by growing towards a stimulus, and negative growth is growing away from the stimulus. An example of positive and negative chemotropism is shown by a plant's root. The roots grow towards useful mineral substances, displaying positive chemotropism, and roots grow away from harmful acids, displaying negative chemotropism. Hydrotropism. Hydrotropism is a plant's growth response in which the direction of the growth is determined by a stimulus or gradient in water concentration. The process of hydrotropism is started by the root cap sensing water and sending a signal to the elongating part of the root. In plants, water can be sensed and is mainly absorbed through the roots. The directional and rate of growth of these roots are towards water, what we call positive hydrotropism. Let us see how simple animals respond to stimulus, like plants. How do simple animals respond to stimuli? There are two different orientation types of responses in simple organisms that are given below. The first orientation mechanism that simple animals responded is taxis. Taxis is a directional response to a directional stimulus in which the organisms move either towards or away from the greatest intensity of the stimulus. For example, the unicellular Protoctista euglena swims using its flagellum towards areas of increased light intensity. This is what we call positive phototaxis and allows the organism euglena to photosynthesize efficiently. The second orientational types of response that simple animals have used is kinesis. Kinesis is a non-directional movement of organisms in response to a stimulus, either in a fast or slow rate of movement to get or avoid the stimulus randomly. For example, woodlice or small land-dwelling crustaceans increase their rate of movement in bright light. Why woodlice do this? Because woodlice do not like dry and bright light. In this case, this factor increases the probability that they will move into a dark area. The increased movement makes it more likely that the woodlice will by chance move into dark and humid conditions once more. Let us see behavioral models that show the response of woodlice to light and dry condition. The stimulus in this case is light and dark conditions. Ocelli or simple eyes of woodlice act as receptors to detect the stimulus and send information to the linking system. Nerve cells or central nervous system of woodlice as linking or coordinating system processes the data that comes from the receptors and send the processed and integrated meaningful information to the effectors. The effectors in this case muscle cells. Muscle cells here increased their rate of contraction and produce response. The response is increased non-directional movement of woodlice.